Hope everyone's having a good start to the summer. Maureen, do you want to do a roll?
Sure.
Thank you.
Brenda Adams, John Bradley,
Here. Yeah.
Supervisor Collins,
Here.
Terrence Develd notified, Suzanne Flom, Dan Haas notified, Supervisor Hotling notified, Tara Humphrey, Claudia Kenny, Ron Knott notified, Supervisor Knott, Wendy Madsen notified, Bill Mancini, Don Meltz,
Here.
Matt Mercier,
Here.
David Newman,
Yep.
Michael O'Hara notified, Patrice Perry notified, Jennifer Phillips,
Here.
Steve Powers,
Here.
Jolene Race notified, Jody Rail, Bruce Shanker,
Here.
Matt Stitchcomb. Okay, we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. So we're going to have a quick meeting today. Thank you all for joining. We have a bunch of updates and projects that are in process that we want to make sure people are aware of and get some feedback on. But it should be a quick meeting. So with that, we need a motion for the minutes from last week. So or last month rather, do we have any changes or modifications to the minutes? Otherwise, we'll take a motion in a second on that.
So move.
I'll make a motion.
Great. That's Bill and John. John
Yep.
Bradley and then Bill seconding. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And
Aye.
anyone opposed, raise your hand or speak up now or forever hold your peace. Okay, great. So let's jump into it. We're starting with an update on the clean heating, cooling, and efficiency campaign. And I'm not sure if Christina is on the call.
I'm here.
Great. Hi, Christina.
Hi.
Great to see you.
Oh, Tara just left and I had a question for her. Great to see you guys all. But I don't have a huge update. I tried to get the data this week for this last month since our last meeting and nobody's gotten back to me. I think we're all having a long vacation. So I'm hoping to have an update. I can just email you guys if there's new installs that have come through since our last meeting, but we're holding steady at 35 countywide right now. I do know that there are a few that have happened since then. I just don't know if the paperwork's completed. So we're moving along really well. We had a good event at the Valatia Library. Terry Moog from the Radiant Store came with me and Fiona Hayes, who is the Cornell Cooperative Extension Energy Advisor now for Columbia County. So we were all there in person, a lot of really good in-depth questions. I think it was really useful. And I think that's it. I think we have some room to add some more events if individual towns want to. I know we had talked about doing some kind of regionally around the county, and also if we might want to do another county-wide Zoom in the fall. So
Great. Thank you, Christina. That's great. I had a question. If there's an install that you're notified of from an installer that is not on our list, can we get that to count?
Yeah, absolutely. Anyone that is a NYSERDA participating contractor.
Oh, I see. They have to be NYSERDA participate.
To be NYSERDA
If
participating.
like, my plumber puts in a unit, that wouldn't necessarily count, even if we could prove that it was partly because of the campaign.
No, it doesn't count because NYSERDA, NYSERDA likes things done NYSERDA's way. And their theory, their thing is that if it's a NYSERDA participating contractor, they're willing to do all the paperwork on the NYSERDA side and really give them the data on what came out, what did this, that, the other thing. So they want all of that.
Makes sense. And the other thing, go ahead.
The other thing I was going to mention is, especially now that this is a tiered campaign and there's so much potential money on the line, and I am only getting the data from those 5 contractors, I've talked to towns individually about other ways that they can be tracking things in their town, as far as either working closely with the building inspector to get lists from him of people who pull building permits for heat pumps. A lot of them don't have the installer name required on the building permit. So if they can know ahead of time and kind of help get that data on the town level, and then the town could share it back to the county, I think that could be really useful. And then the other thing that we have been doing in some towns is just have them send out a newsletter explaining the campaign and providing an email address for their CSC chair or someone like that, so that they again can kind of be self-documenting that by town, and if that could come to either Don or I, we can also track it for the county, because I think there's a lot going on, and I think there's a lot of money potentially coming in the next 6 months from this if we widen our net a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. And we're going to talk about the changes to the grant program a little later on. Maybe we'll move that up. But quickly, there is on the new website, which is also something we're going to talk about, the new county website. I believe there's a link to one of the Zooms, the video that is, that's on there under the heat pump campaign. Is that right, Don?
Yes. Yep.
So if folks need to, want to refer it to people, it's there. Just FYI. I think maybe we ought to. Don, are you prepared to shift the agenda around a little bit? Because I think Christina mentioned the changes to the tiered system, and I think it's probably, we can put that. It's a high priority that we are aware of that and that we're trying to maximize these funds. So why don't we do that?
Sure.
But before we do that, I just want to highlight something in the news category, which is I was going to do it at the outset, but did you guys hear that this past June was the hottest month in recorded history? So, we don't go back thousands of years, although we can determine what the mean temperature was over many hundreds of thousands of years. But this is over meteorological records, I believe, over the last 150 years or so. But and we have an El Nino in effect now, which is making sea surface temperatures warmer than they are on the average, unrelated to climate change necessarily, but a contributing factor in global temperatures being even warmer. So on this very hot day and this very hot week, it underscores the urgency of everything we're doing. So just wanted to make sure people were aware of that. I'm sure you are. That's why we're here, right? So Don, let's talk about money.
Okay. I sent this out. Let me share the window.
While he's getting that ready, I just want to thank Don for some amazing work here. As you'll see, if you haven't looked at this yet, there's a lot of changes happening and to the grant programs, the clean energy grant programs, and there are lots of different ways of analyzing this, and Don has done a great job here. So give us an update, Don.
Well, I just put the numbers together with a new update to the CEC grants and came out with an updated roadmap, a possible roadmap. Of course, this is all best case scenario. If everything falls into place and other counties don't sort of beat us to the punch when it comes to applying for these or qualifying for these grants. So this is my list, essentially. Already underway, we have a $15,000 grant available due to the Heat Smart signups that Christina has been tracking. We are also eligible now retroactively for our solar campaign for a $15,000 grant that we can apply for. If you remember, we instituted that solar campaign, but the state ran out of the number of grants that they were supplying before we were able to document our solar signups. But with the new update, they have retroactively are going to give us that opportunity to apply for that $15,000 grant. I haven't received the email yet But I've been talking to Tara about some of this stuff, and she says it's on its way eventually. So whenever that comes in, we'll have another $15,000 grant. Probably we will apply that $15,000 grant to the DSS solar panels that are being installed on the Department of Social Services building. It just seems to be the easiest route to spend that money as soon as we can. Next in line, and I ran this by Christina via email, though we haven't totally confirmed this yet, but it looks like we will probably be able to get another 20 to 30 signups before the end of the year. Christina, is right? I just want to make sure I'm not overstating that.
I definitely can't promise anything, but that
Yeah.
I would think that feels on track with what we're doing now.
Yeah, right. So if we get another 20 after June 1st, so after June 1st, these all have to be tracked. We will be able to apply for another $30,000 to $40,000 grant. The range being, if we use the grant money in the city of Hudson or the town of Greenport, then we will get a $10,000 bonus for using this within a disadvantaged community. So $30,000 to $40,000 once we get another 20 heat pumps installed. And if I follow through with this, the heat pump demo, which we talked about before, which is essentially just putting a poster and maybe a few brochures at the Newman Road Solid Waste Administration building. That would put us over the 3,000 point threshold in the CEC program and would qualify us for another $30,000 to $40,000 grant. So that would be somewhere between $60,000 and $80,000 all at once, probably most likely before the end of the year. If we can get another 30 heat pumps installed on top of that additional 20, meaning a total of 50, I don't know, maybe that might be stretching it a bit. I don't know, but it's, basically just a matter of time. We just continue the campaign until we get another 50 total after June 1st. Then we would qualify for, again, another $60,000 to $70,000 grant and get another 700 points, bring our total to 3,800. So it all adds up to between $150,000 and $180,000 somewhere around the end of the year. That's what I'm thinking, or sometime early in 2024. Now, this is all stuff that's just sort of ongoing, and I don't want to diminish what Christina's hard work has been, but it's it seems to be a fairly easy, attainable goal here before somewhere around the end of the year or early 2024, $150,000 to $180,000 in grant money. Now the bottleneck is not actually doing the work to qualify for these grants. Really, the bottleneck is what do we spend the money on, and that's what I've kind of run into. We are limited to the number of grants that we can apply for. There are these 6 pre-approved projects that CEC says we can spend the money on, and we were lucky that we had these solar panels being installed on the DSS building because they were sort of in process, and we have sort of the specifications for those solar panels. But even with that, it's really coming down to the wire, getting the application ready, getting all the specifications for those solar panels ready to send in our application to get that money from NYSERDA. All right, so
Don,
yes, David.
that's a good place to pause for a minute. It's a lot of information. This is great. I know that Supervisor Collins has a question, so I just wanted to allow him to ask that question before he moved on.
Oh, you didn't have to interrupt Don for my sake, but thank you, Chairman. Don, thank you so much. This is fantastic. I just had a quick question on the community solar. I know Kara isn't here, but is there any more subscription potential right now for these solar signups? I know things are pretty full with Grid and with NYSEG partnering solar arrays. So what is the status right now? Is there eligibility for signups, or is it a big waiting list?
Yeah, I think Yeah, I think it depends on the company, like Kara's company or Nexamp. I don't know. I haven't heard from them whether or not they have any extra capacity to sign up more folks. I know there was a little concern that there was a big lag between the time that they actually signed the folks up, and now they are starting to actually, connect those folks that signed up with the actual solar project. So I
Don,
kind of
let me take this one. I've been in touch with Kara. I have not been in touch with Nexamp, but I've been pestering Kara to get us an updated report on how many people they subscribed total, how many people were actually given a subscription, how many people signed up to subscribe, essentially, how many people were subscribed into Solar Project, and how many people are on the waiting list. And as well, I want to know what they've communicated to those people so we're aware and we can then answer people's questions, because we've heard a bunch of people asking about, what's going on. I've been waiting. I don't think they have extra capacity just based on the fact they have a backlog from that's Neighborhood Sun and Oya. Nexamp, I suspect it's probably similar. And there are other companies. I can't remember. I think it may be Solstice, but don't quote me on that. I think there's a community. Someone was talking about it at the EMC meeting the other night, and I can't remember where they're launching another campaign with another company. So there might be some other companies that have capacity, but it seems like that is the problem. So we need to try to find, whether the companies we've worked with or other companies that actually have capacity on our utilities. And I don't know if anyone else has any other. Steve sometimes has his finger on the pulse here. I don't want to put you on the hot seat, but there's his hand, right on cue. So I don't know if anyone else. Go ahead, Steve.
I heard from Ampion 9 months out.
Okay.
So,
Now, Steve, were those, early billing jitters, have those been alleviated? I know there were some different issues there. People said, with one utility company, they were having a problem where the billing all of a sudden became staggered because of these applications. Has that been streamlined?
to some extent, but with NYSEG, and are you guys on NYSEG?
Yes.
I think they still have problems.
All right, terrific. Thank you, Steve. Thank you, Don. Thank you, David.
Yeah, Tara, it sounds like Tara may have some more info on this.
Yeah, I mean, not a ton, just that I know that there's other companies that have told me that they have capacity. And like Power Market is one that's potentially going to work with Albany County again. They have to sign an updated MOU with them, but they've told us they have capacity. But that there is a big difference between utilities, as was mentioned. So NYSEG, very little to no capacity, as Steve mentioned, probably like 9 months out. But National Grid probably a bit more capacity, just because it's a wider area. So just something to know.
Okay. Christina?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that Neighborhood Sun is actively trying to join the Solarize Albany campaign right now, and they work through the Clean Energy Hub that I work through, and I kind of gave them a little bit of a report about Columbia County, and I believe that right now that they're saying that they will not work with them until they get everyone in Columbia County taken care of. So just know that is happening on the back end.
Yeah. And we continue to put pressure on them it's astounding to me that it takes weeks to just to get some simple answers, to be honest. So that is what we're working on. And once we have some answers on the numbers, then we can go from there and keep pressuring them to figure out what's going on and make sure that people are being told the honest truth as to what the reality is for when they will or not get signed up. Especially if there are other solar campaigns that are offering capacity and they're on a wait list and they're waiting. Maybe they switch. So Don, I know there are some other potential more attenuated grant, or maybe less likely. But one would be extending the solar campaign.
Right.
If we were able to identify capacity, then we could extend the solar campaign, and that would, if we could get 100 folks, right, that would unlock
Right,
quite a bit
right.
more in grant money. But I think your biggest question, Don, is the point. The overriding point here is how do we spend the money and how do we sign ourselves up to be able to use this money within the budget process of the county? As Don pointed out, we could allocate the 30,000 to the EV project. The solar project that's going on at the Health and Human Services building, and the 5,000 from the, I believe it was benchmarking, just went into the coffers. So in that case, we have 35,000 that we know is going to be used by the county for that has gone to the county essentially to offset costs for whatever they wanted to spend it on. 30 of it actually was for a solar project. So at the very least, I think we make a budget request for at the least $35,000 for next year to try to dedicate those funds towards that we brought in towards a project and see if we can get the county to agree to do that. They were going to spend the 30,000 on the solar project regardless. We were able to offset some of those costs. So, for example, we're working on the EV fleet policy, and we want to encourage the county to commit to a plan to start buying EVs for the county. So $35,000 or installing chargers could be dedicated to, and it would qualify under the Clean Energy Campaign, either the purchase of an EV or installation of a level 2 charger for the county to use. So that's one idea, and like to get thoughts from people. And then there's the uncertainty around how much of this additional grant money will bring in. It could be between, as Don said, I think 120 to 150,000 on top of the 35,000. And depending on what we do and when we know that and what the budget process is, that's tricky. So maybe, we're missing 3 of our supervisors, and I don't want to put Supervisor Collins on the hot seat. We need to learn more. But if anyone has any thoughts on how we might, first question is it reasonable to request $35,000 to be used toward one of these qualifying projects next year and have it in the budget? So when we have the flexibility, if the project doesn't come to pass, the money doesn't get spent, but at least we have the ability, it's been approved. And there's some funding to support the policies that we're trying to implement. I don't know how, so that's the first question. Second question is, how far into this year can we go before the budget process starts, where we could potentially get some additional funding from these other grants allocated for next year's budget to be used for similar projects. The alternative is to identify existing or projects that are happening next year that would qualify, like additional solar projects, or if the county's already planning on doing some EV purchasing, which I don't believe it is, it's thinking about it. And we could, specifically highlight those or get allocations for those projects. Jennifer.
I was just, since we're talking about how to spend money, I was wondering what the status is of regarding us hiring someone to help us with a greenhouse gas inventory. And I know that isn't a huge amount of money, but it seemed like from my just trying to figure out what everything that this committee does is concerns, that there were a few things that we tasks that we wanted to spend money on to get people to help us with our things. So I don't know.
Yeah.
When we're thinking about how to spend money, we should have that list in our minds as well.
And we certainly could revisit that. I think the latest thinking is that there's a capital region inventory that is occurring with state funding that I believe Tara can give us an update on that, hopefully. Or maybe there's no update, but that Columbia County will be participating in. So we will actually get the benefit of the greenhouse gas inventory through that project. It might take a little longer, but it's free for us, for the county. and then we can do our action planning using that document. And for that, maybe we do need some funding to help us with some of the planning exercises. But that's a little further down the line. I don't think that's a next year project.
Okay.
Tara?
Thank you.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, that we're doing a regional inventory. It's going to include a county level as well as municipal level community inventories for the whole 8-county capital region. But that it's not going to be a very detailed community climate action plan. So we will provide one, but that'll be something maybe to think about spending money on.
The action plan itself won't be very detailed, but the greenhouse gas inventory will be
Correct. Yes.
a good, solid inventory, a baseline for us. I guess we have one from 2010 too that we can use as a previous baseline. So if I don't know how aligned they are in terms of comparing, but so that's and do you have any idea? There's no update on the timing, is there, Tara, on that?
Kind of. So we actually have to have there's 2 climate action plans. There's a priority climate action plan and then a comprehensive one. So the priority, the EPA needs us to be done by March of next year. So it's actually a very short timeline. What we'll be doing is taking the 2010 inventory and updating population figures. And then we'll be doing a more comprehensive dive into it. So there'll kind of be 2 updates to it. One a bit quicker and one kind of a year or 2 out.
So you think the first summary update maybe or quick update will be by next March?
Yes, correct.
And then there'll be a more thorough analysis that's done?
Correct, yep.
And that might take an additional year?
I believe the due date for that is 2025, I think, is the comprehensive one. So a couple years further, but the March of next year one should get us a lot of very good data to work with, as well as county level summaries. So
well, that's very interesting. I mean, we don't want to wait until 2025 to start doing an action plan. So perhaps we work toward an action plan next year, using the data we get, which will be, I'm sure it's as good, if not better, than the quality of the 2010, plan or greenhouse gas inventory, I would guess, but and then we can always, if we can get to an action plan, get through that process and it's 2025, we can always update anything that needs to be updated based on the updated inventory. So that's very interesting. I didn't realize it was that quick. That's great that we were able to identify that. Perhaps that's something we do allocate, not the inventory, but the action planning. We do get some funding for. We'll have to do a little more research into exactly what's going to go into that action plan and whether we even need any kind of consulting assistance there for a planning exercise. But I think it would be helpful because, it's Don and he's not full-time, and then it's a bunch of us as volunteers. And if we're going to do a real robust action plan, we want to have the ability to be communicating with the community and doing stakeholder work. And that's going to take time and energy that we don't obviously have within our own capacity. So there are a lot of pieces there. I don't know if we're going to have to look into what's involved, what type of support might be out there, what it would cost, and then of course run this up the chain to see if there's support for that action planning process in the county Board of Supervisors, and if so, if they'd be willing to allocate some funds. But I think we have the time to be able to do that for next year's budget. Danal, do you think so? I mean, what's the the budget timeline better than certainly I do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I always think it's good to ask big and ask early. So that's my recommendation. And, if we were refused, that's no big deal. At least you made the attempt. So really have, this goes in front of county government first. So, start to have, I think Brenda is on county government. So maybe have her start the conversation about these things.
Yep.
We'll
Okay.
go from there.
And Steve, go ahead.
One suggestion I had, I just looked at where the county is in the CEC program. It looks like, Don, we're at 1,800 points.
Yes.
Is that right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe we should look at it from the perspective of how we can bump us up to at least a 3,000 point level where we'll get another, what is it for the county? It's more than 10,000. Another grant. Tara?
Yeah, that would be a $30,000 grant.
Yeah, another $30,000 grant. So if we look at other actions that we could do to get us up to that level, we'll get even more money for that. And I'm happy to help with that if you want, Don.
Right. Yeah. That's like the first set of actions I have here. If we just get another 20 heat pumps signed up after June 1st, and then we put the poster, do the heat pump demo, that puts us over the 33,000 threshold.
Oh, there you go. Right. Okay.
So yeah. So now if we get 30, another total, and if we decide to extend the solar campaign, which is a question I have also received, I've been on a couple of phone calls with a company, Solar Simplified, and they are adamant that they have 100 room for 100 residential signups in National Grid territory and 300 to 400 signups in NICEAG. That they said they could sign up tomorrow if they wanted to. So there are companies out there that have room to expand that. But again, that would mean we don't have a contract with them. We have contracts with the previous two companies, but we would have to go through the process of developing a contract with that new company and putting it through the whole committee and board of supervisors approval process. But it sounds like it's certainly doable.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do that, then that would put us actually over the 4,000 point threshold, which would get us another $70,000 to $80,000 grant.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I just meant that there's other actions that we could look at within the CEC program.
oh yeah, yes. And there are
We've looked at those, including trainings.
and the trainings, you're right. A couple of trainings.
Sign up, right? You sign up, and then the state comes and does the training for employees. There were a couple of those, I think, Don, that you highlighted previously, right?
Couple of trainings, and even using some of this grant money that we get for free to purchase an EV, that gets us points too. So
Right.
we get a free car, install a couple of chargers for basically free. The money that we're getting through this grant program, that gets us another 500 CEC points. So we're sort of like parlaying that.
Yeah.
Sort of a
Well,
gambling.
I mean, I think the conservative numbers right
Yeah.
now, I mean, if we can move forward, we'll look at solar, we'll look at these other providers and see whether there's something there. We'll bring that back to the task force. But I think a conservative, if you scroll up, Don, if you don't mind,
Yep.
conservative estimate of what is probably realistic, very realistic, is we get 20 more. We do the solid waste, the heat pump demo, and that qualifies us for either 60 or 80, depending on where we spend it. If we spend it Don's point is if we spend it in certain communities in Greenport or Hudson, and that's highly likely given that where the county is, then it's not 60, it's not 30, it's 40 for each of those. So I think we're looking at between 60 and 80 that we would likely qualify for. And I don't know how quickly, Christina, we would get to 20 more from June 1st, but maybe that's something we could know in the next month or so. And then we're certain in our request to the county to say we qualified for this. And when we try to get a budget request, and then, getting that demo up is just, a matter of just putting that information out there and then submitting it. So I think it's pretty likely that by the end of the summer, we'll get to, Christina, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I was just emailing with Tara, who clarified that under these new rules, actually the installers outside of the NYSERDA programs can count for the campaign. They won't count, they can't participate in the incentives. So all the affordability options that we present in the educational materials, they won't qualify for. But if your plumber puts in a a heat pump next door to you, write it down. And we just need the installer name, the installer date, the address, and the type of system.
Okay, that's great to know.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tara.
Thank you, Tara. So if you look at 35,000 that we've brought in, and that's being spent, and if we wanted to make a request to allocate that toward something, new, because that money was either for 5,000 was either just put into the treasury, and the 30,000 was spent on something that was already approved and budgeted. So I think at the very least, asking for 35 toward projects that we want to work on next year is very reasonable. And then if we get the information, we know we have 60 to 80 that we qualify for, we could request that. So we're looking at 95 to 115,000. I think we can figure out a way to try to get that done before the end of the summer, so that we're able to run this up and we have to start now. But in that case, I think we're also looking at, well, what does an action plan look like, and what type of resources do we need? And then the balance, whatever we don't need for that, and certainly not all of that would be required, I hope, we could just dedicate toward something like the purchase of EVs, or the installation of a level 2 charger for the county, which then put some money out there for this EV policy that we're putting together, the fleet efficiency policy. Do folks have any thoughts on that, just as a general roadmap for how to try to spend this money?
Yeah, I would say, Dave, that just looking at the requirements to submit the application for these grants, the EV chargers and the EV cars are the easiest. I think, just looking at what I have to plug into the spreadsheet. I think e-vehicles and the chargers are the easiest to apply for. They also have a new category with a new program that the county can purchase electric landscaping equipment. So, rechargeable riding mowers, push mowers, weed eaters, those sorts of things.
Can you use it for action planning or no?
Well, you would have to, correct me if I'm wrong, Tara, but I think you would have to develop what's called a custom project, which has to go through its own sort of approval process. So it can be, but I think that's a little more difficult to use that money directly for developing an action plan. I think we talked about that a little bit with Tara before.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and it's an interesting thing because a lot of communities approach this and ask about that. And this funding is really supposed to be for like implementation projects, which is why they kind of make it difficult to do those. But there are other funding sources for planning, like the Climate Smart Communities grants. So yeah. I would suggest, because the implementation funding is so hard to find, to use this money for projects like, solar and cars and things like that.
Well, what we could do is we could ask for 5,000, which again went from, I think, benchmarking into the treasury, and it's not restricted in any way because it was a smaller amount. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Don, but I think that 5,000, we could say, oh, well, can we just get that allocated to allow us to use it as a match to the Climate Smart Grant Program? And then that's 10,000. So it's a small amount of money, but maybe that's enough to do some action planning. Maybe the county would be generous enough to bump it up a bit from what we've, and then maybe allocate the rest of it to one of these straightforward projects. And that's quite a bit of money to perhaps buy 2 EVs or something for the county. So to be continued, unless there are further thoughts, so we can move on. Great. That's helpful. Very helpful, everyone. Thank you. Where are we at in the agenda? Let's go back up to I don't know if we have an update, the CARP update. Dawn, I know the county's been working with Cornell, but if there's any update that you have.
I think Audrey is on the call. Audrey here? No? I think, okay.
I mean, I think, go ahead, Don. You give the update.
Yes.
Is she muted? I think she's.
I see her on here. Columbia Green. But there was a webinar.
Yeah,
on
we
Wednesday.
can't hear you if she's muted.
Yeah.
She's trying to speak.
Let's pause on this item until
Yeah.
we get that worked out so that Audrey can speak.
Yep.
And the EV, we mentioned this fleet inventory policy,
Mhm.
or the fleet policy. Don has drafted a policy, and I've provided some feedback on it, and we're sharing that with the what is it called? The committee. Don.
Fleet Maintenance Committee.
The Fleet Maintenance Committee to get their feedback. And then we'll be sharing that with the task force as well to get your feedback. Ideally, we can do that by August and then and give it to you ahead of time to read. It's about 5 pages, but it will not necessarily be that long, or might be longer, but hopefully not. And it lays out, some criteria and a policy and a pathway toward purchasing more efficient vehicles, and sets some dates based on the state requirements. And no such policy of any type currently exists. So that's a helpful change for the county, regardless of moving it in a direction towards buying EVs aggressively. Just to have that information and track it. So that's what's happening there. Don, I don't know if you have anything to add.
No, just that I have been talking to Supervisor Knott about this policy and how that fits in with the potential purchase of electric vehicles and where they might place the EV chargers once we get electric vehicles. So all these things kind of tie together. Hopefully in a nice, neat little package eventually.
Yeah.
So we are having all those conversations.
So to be continued, and everyone will get a thorough update with a draft, hopefully by the August meeting to look at and give your feedback on. Audrey, do we connect?
I think I figured it out. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Go
I
ahead.
was looking for my Zoom icon and forgot I'm on Google Meet. I do have a quick update. We actually have been quite busy doing a lot of work on the Columbia County CARP over the last month or so. I've met with Don a couple of times. Don and I met to talk about some of the mapping and data sharing and getting some of that stuff sketched out and detailed out. As well, I met with Don and Patrice to review a climate smart resiliency planning tool for the county at the county level. And following up on that, we'll be reaching out to some of the folks in emergency management and some other departments just to fill in some gaps and confirm a couple of things. Additionally, we have been working to review climate smart planning tools in the rest of the municipalities that are participating. So far, I believe we've done at least 5 of the municipalities have gone through the meeting to review their planning tool and discuss vulnerabilities as well. So that's great. And I'm not sure, I think a few of you might have been there, but we also last Wednesday did a public educational webinar, which talked about the climate change impacts and effects, and then sought to describe the process that we're going through in Columbia County specifically. So we spelled out like the steps we're taking and the methods we're planning on using to achieve our goals. That was recorded and will be shared. Hopefully, municipalities will post it on their websites, and the county, I'm sure, will put it up on your website. And with the finalization of this public educational webinar, we used the opportunity to also inform the public that we're launching the first of 2 surveys. This survey is the Story of Place and Vulnerability Survey. So we're gathering information from at the local level from the community about what you value in your community, what you feel is at risk, what hazards are, in your view, the most risky or potentially damaging, and what you've experienced from climate hazards in the recent past and what you expect to experience. So that survey, we are just finalizing up. I think we might have sent out a quick version to Christina, who had an event she was bringing it to this weekend. So Christina's raising her hand. That should be finalized at least by the end of this week or early next week. And we'll be direct emailing it to the stakeholders that were identified by the leadership teams in each municipality, and as well direct emailing to other departments and organizations like Columbia Land Conservancy. And we're also going to be developing a paper format that can be, we'll be sending out that, municipalities or, community members can print out and bring to whatever venues that might be appropriate, like farmers markets or even community events of any kind where the public might be engaging and interested in providing input.
Great.
So those are the big ticket items. Farther down on the horizon, we're going to be looking to September and October to be holding participatory workshops. So the first workshop will be a vulnerability assessment workshop where we'll be diving in deep and developing a vulnerability matrix out of that workshop and kind of identifying potential or future scenarios. And then the second workshop is going to be that future scenario planning workshop where we're going to play out those future scenarios and really dive into what adaptation strategies that we see are going to be useful to recommend to kind of get to the best place we can, our vision for where we want our communities to be, and what potential hazards we feel we need to be addressing and adapting to, and how we're going to be adapting to those. So those, like I said, are going to be on the horizon for September and October. We'll be following that up with a second survey to get public input on adaptation strategies and vision and community vision. And then we'll be, working up some drafts, and there'll be a public comment period probably early next year, with looking to finalize all the plans by the end of March 2024.
Wow. That's great. That's a lot of detailed, that's a roadmap that I hadn't heard like that. So that's really helpful. A lot of opportunities for input and spread the word. And we will do so through all of our channels, as well as, you're reaching out to folks. But that's great. Thank you, Audrey.
Sure. Thank you. And anybody can feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or, want to hear a little bit more. I'm available.
Great.
Thanks.
Christina, did you have anything to add?
I did. Thank you, Audrey. And thank you for sharing the survey with us a little bit early. I actually didn't end up bringing it to our event because it's 4 pages and we just didn't have that printing capacity for a paper version. And I did just want to flag that I am a little concerned about its length for community outreach. Like we just developed a survey for my job, trying to gauge people's awareness of these programs and things like that. And it's a half a page, 10 questions, and it's still very hard to capture people's attention and input in a street fair or a community event for something. 4 pages might be hard. I don't know if you can format it when you make the paper version in some way, but I know if I hand someone a four pages stapled together at a fireworks event, they're not going to fill it out. So I just didn't want to think.
Okay, thanks, Christina.
We could actually consider maybe to do a truncated version because we are sending it out via Qualtrics survey. So it can be, done digitally online. So maybe we can look to get something that's maybe a 2-page front and back, 1 piece of paper that can work better for, the paper version.
Yeah.
So thanks for the input.
Thank you. I don't know if anyone else has any questions for Audrey, but that's terrific. Participate, spread the word. This work is so important. All the mitigation work we're doing is so important, but this work is so important because regardless of how effective we are with mitigation, the changes are happening now and they're going to become more profound in the years to come. And so being ahead of and understanding the scenarios of what's likely to happen in the future will serve us very well in the changed world that we're creating. So that's just the reality of it. And if you don't think about those things, your head is in the sand. So I'm so glad that these resources are available and that you're doing this work. It's vitally important. People may not quite get it all the time. And it's really important that we explain why it's so important. This is not a theoretical exercise. You know, this changes are here. So thank you, Audrey.
Yeah, I had one quick thing I just wanted to mention because I was listening to like all of your planning for the heat pump installations. And, you know, it occurred to me that, you know, I was looking into some information about cooling centers that are in the county, and there's no officially identified cooling centers at this, you know, from the CDC level. So just curious if there might be some integration of kind of development of cooling centers as you're installing these heat pumps in different places, if there might be kind of a way to integrate that, you know, have them, the places you're putting these potentially get officially designated as places you can go for cooling and really, you know, during heat waves and stuff. So just want to throw that out there as a trying to mix the two
Great.
songs.
Great. Well, thank you again. And reach out to Audrey if you have any follow-up questions, ideas. Take the survey, spread the word, so we get a lot of participation. Don, you want to give us a quick update on the website and social media channels? You might be muted, Don.
Try to share this again here. The links are in the agenda. So if you are, you know, if I believe I sent this out to everyone, the link to the website previously, but they are in the agenda. The website's up, it's running, it's complete, but always a work in progress. We have links to Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn on the homepage and in every footer of every other page. So if you have any of those accounts, please follow them, like them, subscribe, whatever preference is. Even if you don't use it very often, it helps the algorithm get us more, you know, higher up in the algorithm when it goes to posting these things on other folks' timelines. So even if you don't use it very often, it really helps if you push that follow button. We have actually, I was surprised when I sent out my initial email blast or invites. You know, I got most of the responses were from my LinkedIn followers. I got like 17 followers on Facebook. About 20 on Instagram and over 50 on LinkedIn. I think probably because most of my followers on LinkedIn are fellow environmental professionals and GIS folks and planners and things. So they are more, whereas, you know, Facebook are family and friends and may not be as in tuned with following this kind of stuff. But
well, I just want to thank Don for a tremendous amount of work here on all of these fronts. And the website looks great. It has a lot of information, and like Don said, it's a work in progress. The calendar could be populated with a lot more information, for example, the news and announcements page. So it's really important that all of us reach back out to our communities and that we let people know that sending Don information gets the information out there. And the effectiveness of the website and the social media is all dependent on content. If it's relevant, if there's news, if there's information that people want or will have, they know that there's going to be more information there. And if there's static they will remain that way. So please send Don any information you have on events or anything else, or any suggestions on updates and improvements as well. Jennifer.
I'm just, it really looks fantastic, Dawn. So great job. Thanks for putting all this effort in. I was wondering if it could be useful on that home page, the landing page, to have something that would be sort of a highlight or spotlight, because just now I was thinking, I want to look at the site and see where I can find out about the heat pump program.
Yeah.
And it was kind of hard for me to find. And I wondered if at a moment when we're trying to push a particular program and it's just the sort of general public who would be looking at a site like this,
Right.
if they don't know about it already, they're not going to know where to look for it. So if there could be a place to have, just something that would inform people that don't know what to look for.
Right.
And have that, maybe that would be something that would change every month or something, just so that there's something fresh on that homepage, and then it would link to the details.
Yeah, well, that was the idea for this news and announcements sort of column. What I can, I can put as many in a row. So yeah, I could definitely add a link to the heat pump campaign in this column somewhere. Sort of an ongoing, maybe a shorter list of links that lead to our more active actions that we're working on. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. The more prominent, the better. So it's not buried. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thanks. Yeah, it looks.
Okay, let's continue to move along. If you have other suggestions, please send them to Don. But that was a really good one. The couple quick additions. One is the EV infrastructure, fast charging. We had a call, Supervisor Knott, Don, and I had a call with Mike Tucker at CEDC last week to discuss partnerships on how to use the terrific mapping work that Don did to really reach out and move things forward with getting these projects built out. It was a good call, and Mike agreed to evaluate some of the grant programs, and I sent him some information as a follow-up of what grant programs we're aware of. A lot of these programs need to go through a municipality, and so he's evaluating those programs to see if there's a way that we could structure an arrangement with CEDC where there's a pass-through, essentially. So the county gets funding, and CDC can then administer those funds to some developers who can develop these projects where the county is not necessarily a long-term party to the potential liabilities of any kind of peak demand charges or anything like that, or subscriptions that don't get met by the user fees. That's the concern. So that was very promising and exciting. We'll hear more soon on that, and we'll follow up. We also plan on reaching out to the town supervisors first of the towns with the hotspot locations from that map. So Don and I will be doing that, and then starting conversations with those supervisors, and then directly with some of the businesses, the landowners and the businesses in the relevant locations to do some organizing and to identify interested parties. At that point, we hopefully will know more about what type of grant monies might be available. We do know that the utilities have a make ready program where they will, for private parties, so irrelevant, the municipality is not relevant to that funding source. They will bring the power essentially to the location. So they'll do infrastructure upgrades to bring the megawatt of power, whatever you need to actually have a fast charger, which is a significant cost. So we can bring a utility to an interested meeting with an interested party, and then a couple of the installers that we've already spoken with as well, to continue a discussion on what a project looks like. So that's where we're at. It's kind of community organizing really, and trying to bring some interested parties together. And so we certainly are open to assistance and help if there's anyone that wants to work with Don and I on this outreach and organizing. Supervisor Collins?
Yeah, David, did you say that those were non-governmental make-readies? I mean, exclusively non-governmental?
I maybe I'm wrong about this, but I thought that the Make Ready program or the utility infrastructure programs were open to any party.
Okay.
Do I have that wrong?
That's correct. They're open to anybody.
Okay.
Okay, terrific. Because, we do have the town owns a charger in the village of Chatham right off of Main Street. And we're tossing around if grant money was available to try to upgrade that to a DC fast charger, because I think we don't have a lot of subscription there, because I think it's the lethargy of the charging rate. People overlook that often. So it's something I would like to explore. I know I have to submit a load. Oh, I'm sorry, it's escaping me. The application to NYSEG to see if it's available to bring that 480 in. But I'd really like to see if we can upgrade or even piggyback at the same site, have the level 2, but also have a DC fast charger. So I'd love to talk to you guys about that from a selfish municipal standpoint.
No, that's great. That's great because if the town is willing to be involved, it already is, and can apply directly. I mean, DEC has zero emission vehicle a grant program. It had one last year. I assume it's going to launch again this year. And so, if you're prepared to apply, that's a significant amount of funding aside from the Make Ready. So that Make Ready could support the infrastructure, and then there are a couple other grant programs. So let's have a conversation, Denal.
Terrific. Thank you.
Yep. Bill. Good to see you, Bill.
Same here. Good to see you, Dave, and everybody else. I happen to have a conversation, actually a walkthrough with one of the trustees here in the village for a DC charging station with ChargePoint last week. This trustee was against putting in another charging station, but now he changed his mind because he sees the trend going that way, as he said to me. And actually, we kind of hit a bump because of the historic district where he wants to put it. And there'll be objections to the number of transformers that'll be hanging off a pole. We already have a level 2 there, but they told us we'd have to put up another transformer on one of the poles that are feeding the charging station now. So he's still looking into possibly other locations. So if you want to put the village of Kinderhook down as an interested party, that would be great. Mark Brown is the deputy mayor. He's the fellow who's been talking about it with me over the last few weeks.
This is a really very helpful from both Chatham and Kinderhook, because I mean our mapping may not overlap exactly with where you're considering, but there are locations, sweet spots from the mapping exercise in both areas. Kinderhook, Valatia, and throughout, Chatham, Ghent, that corridor, that's Chatham, but actually Ghent and proper Chatham. So, I mean, if there's some flexibility, there's the power can be brought in and the location can be optimized. And so I think having conversations, that's what we want to do. I mean, Don and I were planning on reaching out to these hotspot locations, but now it sounds like we're being invited out to have the conversation, which is a lot easier. So I think that's where we'll start, with Denal and Bill, with those two locations. It makes sense. So there are other areas that people have seen the map, and if you need an update that there's interest, please bring it to our attention. But that's very exciting.
And there is, there's the new restaurant that opened up in the village with a very large parking lot, and I've kind of through another party, have asked about them putting in a private one themselves. So I don't know if that would work with the, with this having a company there that would take over it, and he would just have it in his parking lot. Because as the trustee said, there's a lot of Teslas that park there every Friday and Saturday night. So they would do well, I think.
Yeah. Right. And there's also this interesting backdrop of a change to the North American charging standard that Tesla uses by the other non-Tesla manufacturers. It seems like if you were going to place a bet that everything's going to converge on that standard, which is a better piece of technology. I've used both. And one is like this lugging, heavy, big, cumbersome thing that feels like it's going to rip the charge port off your car. And the other one just slides right in. It feels like a level 2, even though it's a level 3. So that'll be interesting how all this converges. But we push forward on all these fronts. And I believe, Steve, you're working on something in New Lebanon as well, right?
Yes, we are. And actually, Mark Antonison is on the call here too, listening in. So we're evaluating what the options are here from all standpoints in terms of the grid and locations in town.
Great. Okay. Anything else on EV for now? Charging, that is. Okay, great. The last update quickly. I think, Steve, you brought this to us. There's a solar mapping exercise you wanted to bring to our attention.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't know I was going to have to speak to it, but
well, I can also give an update on the CLC project, which has got kind of some component, or it's related to this.
Yeah, that is actually part of that project. So if you have an update on that,
sure,
I would cover it.
Yeah. So CLC is launching an initiative. They came to the EMC to tell us about it. It's a part of a county conservation vision. So they want to develop a countywide planning document that prioritizes and identifies lands of important cultural and community resources, determines appropriate siting for renewable energy, and identifies land suitable for development of affordable housing. So it really touches on conservation and protecting important natural resources, but also identifying areas for suitable development for renewables, which we know is very controversial, or has been in some cases, and also addresses another major, or will seek to address another major challenge in our community with where to put and how to develop affordable housing. It's quite ambitious for CLC, I think, and they're trying to raise money through a grant to help them do some of this work, and eventually will want to partner or have adoption of some of the open space planning with the county itself. So that's a project that's just getting started, but it does have, at least it intends to have some planning around identifying parts of the county that would be suitable for solar development, which I think is sorely needed given the controversies around projects that just kind of come up from where there's a private landowner interested and a developer interested, and how challenging that is in some cases. So that's happening. There's not much else to say about it, or at least they're planning on it. Steve, there was also something that you, I guess, were aware of, or, I Scenic Hudson has a planning tool for solar. I'm not sure if it's something that we would want to look at or use, but did you want to add anything?
Yeah, when we were redoing the solar regs in town here, I took that the Scenic Hudson solar mapping workshop or whatever, and I don't know, I think maybe some of others here on the call have done it as well. It's an excellent tool, and what came up we had a reunion call a couple of weeks ago, and they mentioned this Long Island, I forget what was it called, Dave, you remember? Long Island Protocol or whatever, about 2 or 3 years ago when they were looking at siting on Long Island. A number of groups got together and included the utilities and all the stakeholders so that they could work on it in advance and not have hopefully the same issues that had come up with the Shepherd's Run project here in Columbia County. So it's a a thought to consider certainly as we move forward here. You're muted.
Thank you. I just said great. Thank you. So that's just kind of an update as to other resources and also plans that are kind of in the works to try to deal with some of these challenging issues around siting and capacity. That I believe is a wrap. I don't think we have anything else. It's hot too, so we only can do so much, right? I hope everyone has a great July. We've been getting rain, which is really nice. For some, I know too much rain. Denali, maybe too much rain, but those of us in trees like it. So we're happy about that. So everyone, I hope you have a good July, and we'll reconvene in August. We'll keep carrying on, and thanks for everyone's work and contributions. Appreciate it.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.